Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Metropolis Radio. Today we are taking a look at this Screen Rant article that is titled Why Netflix's Masters of the Universe He-Man series is so controversial. Kevin Smith's Masters of the Universe revelation has proved a lot more divisive and controversial than anyone expected. What's going on? And I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys this right now. If you're watching this video first, all three videos that I'm going to publish today are going to be about Masters of the Universe revelations. So just a fair warning before we really go into this article. But it's going to be this first one of why it was so controversial, and then the next two are going to be all about Kevin Smith and his actions over the past week. But let's get right into this article before I jump too ahead of myself. Kevin Smith's Masters of the Universe revelation has proven surprisingly divisive. I'm not that surprised, believe it or not, because Kevin Smith has openly admitted that he was never a fan of Masters of the Universe. So I have to tell all these people in the Fandom Menace, what the fuck were you expecting? If you have this guy that's been so public about the fact that he's not a Masters of the Universe fan, of course it was going to be dog shit. I knew that the second he admitted that. Blah, blah, blah. Kevin Smith is very much a self-confessed fanboy, not of Masters of the Universe, and when he was approached to produce a Masters of the Universe revival, he didn't want to reinvent He-Man. He said, quote, now this is shortened because this article was from a couple months ago, our manifest was to be fan servicey, Smith insisted. I would not be the guy you'd tap to reinvent something, but if you want to keep it good, going lovingly, true to the franchise, and just growing up the characters a little bit so their conversations are a little more adult-oriented, I'm your guy, end quote. And yet, as fan servicey as Smith has aimed to be, the fact remains that his Masters of the Universe revelation has been deeply divisive. The show has been quote-unquote review bombed on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't think it's being review bombed. Now, some review bombing is probably going on, but keep in mind, review bombing is not just littering the Rotten Tomatoes page with a bunch of one-star reviews. Review bombing can go in the opposite direction with everyone leaving 5-star reviews. So just keep that in mind. Blah, blah, blah. At the time of writing, its audience score is still just at 33%, contrasting with a more impressive 95% critic score. Something about the He-Man revival doesn't seem to be resonating with every aspect of the fan base, leading to outrage. The irony is that Smith had previously claimed he didn't want to reinvent He-Man because he felt the franchise was too well loved, and doing so would lead to exactly this kind of reaction he's getting anyway. So why is Masters of the Universe revelation so controversial? And is any of this controversy justified? Before I dive into the 3 points, the three main criticisms that the article points out, I would say that the controversy is well justified, given the fact this was a non-fan working on a production, working on an IP that has a very devout fan base. Of course they were going to be pissed off, but let's get into the first main criticism that they tackle, and that is Masters of the Universe's marketing was misleading. The problems begin with the marketing, which centered upon the idea He-Man was returning after decades of absence on the small screen. Trailers suggested this was a straightforward continuation of the original series, with the most powerful man in the universe standing front and center, but attentive viewers would have noticed He-Man wasn't actually named in the revival show's title. He actually was in the very beginning, but I don't remember who. I think it was Netflix that actually scrapped He-Man from the title of the show. Suggesting he wouldn't be quite a key player as they thought. According to Smith, the title Masters of the Universe Revelation actually refers to Teela's character journey. She learns that Prince Adam is actually He-Man in the most heartbreaking manner possible, seeing him sacrifice himself in an ill-fated attempt to save Eternia. And there's your biggest fucking problem. You killed He-Man in the first fucking episode. All this means the first 5 episodes of Smith's He-Man revival are remarkably short of action scenes starring He-Man himself, and that's something the viewers weren't prepared for based on the marketing. One reason for the controversy, then, is that there has been a dramatic mismatch between the marketing and the actual product, leading to people going in expecting something very different from what they were getting. Well, see, here's the other problem, and I've heard this criticism from people that I follow, is that, oh, well, He-Man isn't the central character because it's not called He-Man, it's called Masters of the Universe. But here's the problem. Who has been the central character of the Masters of the Universe line ever since it originally came out in the early 80s? Oh, that's right, it was fucking He-Man. So you're going to make a Masters of the Universe show without He-Man. You're not going to make him without your titular character. That's literally a recipe for disaster. Of course people were going to be pissed off, which leads directly into the second point that they make. Masters of the Universe killed off childhood heroes. Blah, blah, blah. It doesn't help that the baton is passed to Teela in the most shocking way possible when He-Man sacrifices his life. Thematically, He-Man's death is at the core of Smith's attempt to create a show that is a little more adult, and it allows him to have characters deal with the messy grief he excels at so much. Jury's out on that one. But to the fans, he's killed off one of their childhood heroes in order to focus on the supporting characters, the childhood hero whose continuing adventures they were so excited about watching. Yes, because imagine watching a Masters of the Universe show where you see He-Man get killed off in the very first episode. Boy, oh boy, does that make you want to watch episode 2? Probably not. Blah, blah, blah. Making matters worse, Masters of the Universe Revelation Season 1 ends with Prince Adam returning, only to apparently be killed again. Wow, so you actually killed him twice. I personally have not watched the show, and I'm very much in the same camp as Kevin Smith is. I am not the biggest fan of Masters of the Universe, but over the course of these 3 videos, I'm basically going to go into why I'm even, discussing these. So let's just get back into this. Even worse, because he chose to leave Eternia's vision of heaven, he no longer has a home in the afterlife to look forward to. So, again, if you're gonna... Okay, I could understand killing He-Man in the first episode to lead to a... That could lead to something very, very interesting if done very well. Exploring, like, He-Man in the afterlife, maybe, people fighting in Eternia to take He-Man's place, but... somehow he comes back at the end because it's all a fantasy. Again, it's something that could have been interesting depending on what they would do with it. But the article goes on here. Speaking to Variety, Wood has insisted He-Man isn't really gone. There is a lot of profanity, but fuck you, I swear all the fucking time, and I don't fucking care if you're offended or not. So, and if you are, fuck you. But he said, quote, I see people go online go, hey man, they're getting rid of He-Man, Wood fumed. Like, you really fucking think Mattel Television, who hired me and paid me money, wants to do a fucking Masters of the Universe show without He-Man? Grow the fuck up, man. Like, that blew my mind. Bunch of people being like, oh, I smell it, this is a bait and switch. I don't blame people for thinking that the show is a bait and switch. It's a Masters of the Universe show where you kill He-Man in the first fucking episode and make the show entirely center around Teela. Yeah, people are going to be pissed off. The problem is, though, that the 5th episode really doesn't feel as though Adam is still alive simply because of the scale of the injury he suffered, which looks decidedly fatal, and the details about the afterlife feel as though they're intended to seal his fate. Bluntly, viewers can be forgiven for believing He-Man really is dead and reacting emotionally to this shocking and unexpected twist. So now, let's go into the third main criticism that they bring up, and that is Masters of the Universe Revelation doesn't capture the spirit of the original. Finally, it doesn't help that Masters of the Universe Revelation really doesn't feel like a continuation of the original series. All the characters are there, but Smith's attempt to make a more mature He-Man series means he somehow missed the heart of the franchise. The original He-Man and the Masters of the Universe may not have been the best animated series in history, but it was marked by a certain degree of naive optimism. In contrast, Masters of the Universe Revelation is almost relentlessly bleak. The main plot is driven by the death of He-Man, the theme is an exploration of messy grief, and the conclusion sees Skeletor ascend to become Skelegod, while Adam is left critically wounded. And then the article goes on to basically make excuses for why the show is received the way it is, saying here, it's possible part of the problem with Masters of the Universe Revelation is simply that it has come out at the wrong time because the real world has been quite bleak enough for the last 18 months. Or maybe because people were expecting a Masters of the Universe show, and this is far from Masters of the Universe. It's Masters of the Universe in name only. old school fans could be forgiven for having anticipated He-Man as a potential escape from this, and then tuned in to find something that felt far grimmer than they'd expected. Of course, technically, the story is only halfway through, and this is the main problem. With Season 2 set to feature rematch fights between He-Man and Skeletor, but the first half's conclusion, intended to raise the stakes, may well have simply made people decide this wasn't the He-Man story they wanted to watch right now, and it remains to be seen whether the audiences will tune in for the next season. And there's even a real question if they're even going to go beyond a second season, because from what I understand, the second part of this is already done. And people forget, like, when He-Man was first rebooted back in 2002, it only lasted for 1.5 seasons, and really the show was canceled over two things. Number one, it had an inconsistent airing schedule on Cartoon Network, and number two, the toy sales were not where Mattel wanted them to be. Now, granted, around that time, this was early 2000s Mattel was being mismanaged all to hell. But keep in mind, low toy sales is what caused the cancellation of the 2002 reboot. So what we could see is that if the toy sales for Masters of the Universe Revelation are too low, we could see yet another cancellation, because why else would you bring back He-Man and the Masters of the Universe if you just wanted to basically kill the franchise off? It makes no sense. Mattel wants to make money, and this is one of their biggest IPs that is now being dragged through the fucking toilet. So the article concludes, there is a sad irony to Masters of the Universe Revelation in that Kevin Smith is a fanboy first and foremost, again, not of Masters of the Universe, and he has gone on record many times stating he was never a fan of Masters of the Universe. And yet he has managed to launch a revival that has proved far more controversial than he'd expected it to be. I think the controversy was intended. Masters of the Universe Revelation is a love letter to the original series. Here's where I have to stop. If it's a love letter to the original series, then why did you kill off He-Man and Orko in the very first episode? Just like that? You knew that was going to provoke people. And this is why I make the claim Kevin Smith wanted the controversy. But here's the problem. Controversy is a double-edged sword. Especially now in 2021. How many times have fan bases just gone absolutely bamboozled because these creatives want to subvert expectations? And you know what? Many people in the fan bases are getting sick and fucking tired of this. Because of how part 1 ended, how many people are even going to bother to tune in for part 2 to see where it concludes? I would venture a guess that the vast majority of people are probably not going to tune back in. But again, we're never going to know that because Netflix doesn't typically release its streaming numbers. But let's get back to the final sentence. Masters of the Universe Revelation is a love letter to the original series. Bullshit. With countless Easter eggs and returning characters, but sadly, it just hasn't quite hit the right note with fans, and it never will because Kevin Smith wanted to be a shock jock, and it fucking backfired. That's all it is. So, guys, that's going to go ahead and do it for this video. Thanks so much if you have stuck around this long. I'm going to end it right here instead of dragging this out longer than it needs to be. And if you've been following me long enough, you know I am terrible at ending these, so I will just see you guys next time.